This Facebook live session on career management. I am Hamsaz Vasunia and I head human resources for DCB Bank. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna talk for probably the next 10 to 12 minutes on some career advice, some career management tips that I can give you. Post that, we will open it up for questions. I'll try and answer as many questions as possible. So if you have any questions, please write it in the comments in this particular chat. So what I'm going to cover is a few things on how do you choose, because a lot of times I get this question of how do I choose my career. So I'm going to cover some things on that. I'm going to cover how do you grow in your career. I'm also going to cover when should you typically move or change your jobs in your career. And lastly, I want to end this with giving you some quick tips on resume writing. So this is what we'll cover in the next 10-12 minutes. So let me start with choosing the right career. So the first most important thing about choosing the right career, there are two questions that you need to ask yourself. One is, do I enjoy doing this? And that's very, very important. If you were not going to be paid for it, would you still take that career up? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Do I truly enjoy it? The second thing is, am I really good at it? So you have to take on something where you know you are probably in the top 10 percentile, or you're probably the better off in that particular area. So those are the two questions that you need to ask yourself, and cut out the other background noise. You know, a lot of times people get very confused because they are thinking about, okay, which career is going to give me more money, or which career am I going to grow very fast, and things like that. Just don't worry about all of those. Think about these two questions, answer these two questions, and if you enjoy what you're doing and if you're good at it, money and growth will definitely follow. So that's the first point. The second thing that I want to talk about is learning. Most important thing in your career when you're managing it is to learn. So I think there's a Three Idiots dialogue that says that Kabil bano and Kamyabi apne aap piche aayegi. So it is about making yourself more capable. It's about making sure that you learn. 70% of the times we learn through on-the-job work that we do. So get involved in different tasks, get involved in different projects, take on things, take on new responsibilities, because that's how you will learn the most. 20% of the times we learn through interactions with other people. So make sure that you're talking to people in different departments, different teams, etc. Understand how they are doing their work. That'll just overall give you a holistic learning. And nominate yourself for various training programs, e-learning, classroom sessions, etc. So that's on the learning part. The other thing that is very important when it comes to career is relationships. You have to be able to build relationships through your career, whether it be with your boss, whether it be with people in your team, people outside in the organization, your internal stakeholders, definitely your external customers. People, stay connected with people who've left the organization, your ex-colleagues, stay connected with people from your previous organizations. Building and maintaining these relationships come in very handy, especially sometimes when you're going through a rough phase in your career. These are the relationships that will typically bail you out at that time. So that's on relationships. The other part is building your competencies and skills. So up until a particular point in your career, maybe for the first 3 or 4 years, typically what is more important is your knowledge, your functional skills. How well are you doing the technical part that you're supposed to do? If you're a coder, how well are you actually coding? But what happens is, after a particular point, your skills and your competencies become a lot more important. To say that how are you, how are you getting work done out of your people? How are you innovating? How well are you connected with the industry? How are you able to influence people? So a lot of those things become much more important than just your pure knowledge on your domain, or just the domain expertise that you've built. So make sure that you hone those skills again through a lot of training, a lot of learning, etc. that we talked about. The other thing is take initiative. So I link taking initiative to being a sign of a leader. So wherever possible in your team, in your role, take initiatives. If it means that you have some new joinees who join your team, even if they're obviously not reporting into you, mentor them, take the initiative to train them. take initiatives to clean up something that has probably been a backlog or has been going on in the team for long. So what happens is when you take initiatives, you become visible for opportunities. So tomorrow, if there was a role where they were looking for a supervisor, you will be looked at because you've already sort of shown that you have that particular skill. So in taking initiatives is very important. The other part is being visible. So a lot of people feel that, you know, my work will speak for itself, which is great, but there's no harm in speaking for your work as well. Make sure that you are visible, you are talking to your boss. You know, if you have good ideas, share it with your super boss. Be vocal in meetings, talk to people, share your ideas, be visible. Basically, don't just be a silent worker unless you're a librarian. The last point that I want to talk about is, when do you move a job? So again, you know, the most important thing that you have to keep in mind when you're moving a job is the role. If you are getting a role that is bigger, that is better, then you should make that move. Don't jump a job just because you're getting a 10% extra, or that, you know, you had a fight with your boss, or that you're probably not happy with something that's going on in the organization. So those are all the wrong reasons for which you will move. So move only when you know that you're getting a slightly bigger role, more responsibilities, the learning is going to be more, etc. Because what happens is, if you keep moving for small hikes, you will reach a particular level where you would have hit the glass ceiling. Nobody can give you any more money in that particular role, and nobody will take you on for a bigger role because probably, you know, you have you've reached an age and you're still at a lower role. So that's again very important. So these are some of the things that are generic career advice, and like I said, I'll end it with a few things on resume writing, because a lot of times we get a lot of queries on resume writing. So first things, make sure that your resume is just about 2 pages. Don't try and write everything. You're going to be meeting when you meet for the interview, you can talk a lot about different things at that point in time. So make it 2 pages. The format and the structure, keep it neat, keep it clean, make sure that the font sizes, all of that is good enough. Your spelling and grammar, please do a thorough check. The last thing you want is typos in your resume. And the most important thing in your resume is that you highlight your achievements. One, you have to write your responsibilities, etc. But wherever possible, highlight some of the achievements. So if you're in a sales role and you're able to, if it's not confidential, you're able to write about the business you've generated, or certain awards you've got, or certain key achievements, then those really sort of should get highlighted in your resume. And lastly, don't lie on your resume. It is fine if you have a job break, if you have taken a break from your career, if you've lost your job, be honest about it. A lot of organizations are okay seeing a job gap, but they're not okay with people who lie about it. So make sure that you're very honest. Sorry. So I think that's about it. I'll check on some of the questions. Okay, so Shekhar has asked a question, what is the importance of network and how do I build one? So your network is a very, very important tool that you have in your career. So one, how do you build it? You have to make sure, like I said, a lot of what I talked about in terms of relationships is applicable. Remain in touch with people, attend various conferences, seminars, etc., where you can meet external people from the industry, and again, stay connected with them. The best and easiest way to do this is call them up when you're stuck with something. You know, when you need help, when you need help, call them up and ask them, because everyone likes to give advice. So ask them for some advice, and you know, that's how you sort of start building a relationship, start building your connect with the external world as well. So do that, because what happens, like I mentioned to you, a lot of times when you are between jobs, or say if you've been your company has downsized and you've lost your job, traditional methods of hiring, it becomes difficult to get a job. But when you have a network, when you have relationships that you can fall back on, you can call them up, and typically the jobs that you will get mostly are through that. So that's on the network part. Radhika has asked a question that I'm in the hospitality industry and I wish to get into a bank. Okay, so actually a lot of people have usually asked this question to me, that I'm in a non-banking industry and I want to get into the banking industry. So typically, just to give you a little sense of the banking industry jobs per se, there are jobs which are frontline relationship driven, where obviously there's a lot of selling required, a lot of relationship management required. Then you have jobs which are operations related, so a lot of the back end processing, transactions, etc. Those are the other set of jobs. And then you have the credit roles, typically, where you are actually doing credit appraisals and things like that. Apart from that, these are some of the core jobs that typically you will find in a retail and corporate banking, corporate bank. Apart from that, you have the support functions, like you have HR, IT, etc. So when you're looking to get into the banking industry, typically what happens is, for any operations job or the credit job, you need to have a little bit of experience. It becomes very difficult to get into a credit role or get into a branch operations role without any experience. So try and get into the banking industry through a sales or a relationship role, because that is where banks are typically hiring more, and they're a little more flexible to take on people from different industry. So you could probably make an inroad through that, and then probably work your way up in the bank that way. So that is one of the tip I can give you. Any other questions? Okay, so Neha has asked, what are the basic characteristics that employers are looking for in someone who is just graduated? So typically even when I go for campus hiring, etc., what I'm looking for mostly is the attitude in the person, because that is what you are, that is most important. How hungry is the person to learn? How open is he to learn? How open is he to take feedback about himself? How open, flexible is he to, and how adjusting is he in different environments? Typically, those are the things that you want, because you don't want someone who is extremely rigid, etc. You want someone who's flexible and wanting to learn. So typically, those are some of the qualities that recruiters look for when hiring a fresher. Okay.
So one of the questions that have come is, what is the scope for a non-banker for HR to get into HR?
Yeah, so I think Sunil has asked this question. What is the scope for a non-banker for an HR? For HR, is it? Okay. So see, for HR, like for example, if I can give you my personal example, I was in a quality and operations role, and I wanted to get into human resources. And obviously nobody was going to hire me into HR because I had zero experience in HR. So what I did is I got into a sales role in an HR consulting organization. Once I got in there, post that, I slowly moved into the mainstream HR. So similarly, for anyone who's wanting to get into HR, yes, it is typically difficult because you want experience, but your inroad can be getting into an HR consulting. Today, there are a lot of HR consulting companies. So make an inroad into that, even if you have no HR experience. And from there, you can then get into mainstream HR if you obviously are good at the fundamentals of human resources. So lastly, I think a lot of people even earlier have posted about wanting to join DCB Bank. So I'll just like to end it there, that you can go onto our page. The way to apply to DCB Bank is go onto our career page. We will actually put the link of the career page shortly onto this particular chat. and from there you can apply, you can upload your resume, and there are various jobs. You can search for jobs as well, but even if there is no job currently that fits what you're looking for, you can upload your resume, and as and when there is a suitable opportunity, my team will get in touch with you. So that's all. I think, thank you all for logging in. It was a pleasure interacting with all of you.